evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our fourth SIL-Asia webinar. If you need assistance, please use the chat window. And if you're having difficulties in configuring your connection, please log out from the session and rejoin again. You may also use your phones or tablets to join by using the webinar ID 686-976-739. And for those attending our webinar for the first time, please be advised that all microphones are muted throughout the meeting. And for comments, please use the chat box. And for questions, please use the questions box. The Q&A will be held after the lecture. May we now call on our speaker, Ms. Pearl Gasmin.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for attending this SIL-Asia webinar. This is the second webinar that I'll be conducting. The first one was last week. So for today, we'll be discussing some operations with the connection between client registry and interoperability layer. But basically, we will take just one example. So for tonight, the outline is we'll discuss we'll give a preview of available client registries in the market. We'll give some overview, some of their features, and then of course their capabilities. And then after that, we will actually focus on one client registry, one example of client registry, and then how do we connect or how do we interact with the client registry. So some have a GUI and then some have API to work with. So let's see. So the first one that we'll discuss is about the Medic CR. So you can see in your screen is their homepage, and you can if you have time, you can look into it for more details. So we'll just give a basic overview of what is Medic CR. So this the Medic Client Registry began as a reference implementation of the Pan-Canadian Standards Client Registry in early 2010. So it was part of the reference implementation revamp project, which sought to improve the performance, flexibility, reuse, and standards compliance of several early reference implementation. So the Medic CR is based on and heavily leverages the Medic Service Corp framework. So this framework provides a series of plugins which allow a particular piece of software to act as a reference implementation. So in the next slide, we will see a figure which provides a high-level overview of the service specifications implemented in the Medic CR. Okay, so this is the client registry components that Medic CR is implementing. So this architecture has allowed the client registry to evolve over time, and it has since grown to support a multitude of features and standards. Okay, so another client registry that is available in the market is the WSO2 Identity Server. Okay, so there is as any other client registry, of course, they all solve the problem of identity management. So some of the additional capabilities or power of WSO2 is so it efficiently undertakes the complex task of identity management across enterprise applications, as well as the services and APIs. So it draws on the strength of the most widely standards and offers a platform-agnostic approach that allows enterprise architects to implement a uniform security layer upon existing assets across their digital business. So some of the capabilities or strong points of WSO2 is having a single sign-on and identity federation. It also has a strong authentication. So it enforces multi-factor authentication with SMS, email one-time password, or OTP, fast identity online, duo security, and more. So it also has identity governance and administration. So it allows the management or the administration to manage users or group of users with automated user provisioning and approval of workflow. So one good thing about WSO2 is it also incorporates workflows. So some other capabilities are entitlements and access control, monitoring, reporting, and auditing. And then it can also integrate with any system and enhance capabilities with using connectors. This one. So yeah, so these are the capabilities, some of the capabilities of WSO2 identity server. So the next one would be the Open EMPI. So it's an open enterprise master patient index. So it also emphasizes that it is an extensible MPI or extensible master patient index. So here, so actually the Open EMPI is also endorsed or is being used by the OHIE. So you can actually see a demo video of a client registry implemented with the Open EMPI. So if you go to the link here in your screen, so you can actually see a demo video of a client registry, wherein you will see the Open EMPI in action. So here, so for the example that we'll be discussing for the rest of the webinar, we will actually use the Open EMPI. So for the Open EMPI, it actually has a GUI or an administrative console. So this is actually easy to install the administrative console. So again, so the Open EMPI is an open source implementation of the EMPI, which is a repository that maintains registry of all patients across an enterprise. So it provides many benefits. So one of which would be it maintains a central registry of all patients and their demographics. So actually, this is the benefits of using a client registry. So next would be the operations that we can do as an interaction with the Open EMPI. So first, we will have we can create new patients in the Open EMPI. So here you can actually use the GUI portion, or you can actually use an API. So here we'll focus more. We'll actually present two ways of some operations with EMPI. So first would be the GUI part, and then later we'll also see the how do we interact with the Open EMPI with the API. So here, as you can see in your screen, so it is really easy to create a new patient. So you will just click the plus button, the green one, green plus button in your toolbar, and then you can actually see this screen in your administrative console. So here on the first part, so you will see that you will actually add a new entity. So it will start with asking you with the identifier. So the identifiers will have the identifiers will include the local identifiers. So mainly if you can actually add the SSN right away, so you can just choose the SSN as the identifier domain, and then the unique identifier or the local ID of the patient for SSN, you can actually add it here. So you can see that you have an add button here. So this means that you can add multiple identifiers in one go. So aside from the local identifiers, so as what we discussed last time. So we have the local identifiers for the exact matches, and then we also have the demographics. So here you can add the name, the birth, the contact info, and some other demographics data. So they are actually grouped in some part. So next would be so after the GUI part, you can also add a new patient in OpenEMPI using the REST API. So here you can actually use a third-party application like Postman, wherein you can test your wherein you can send the XML request that you have. So for the API, for creating a new patient, so the URL wherein you will send your request is given in your screen. So here you will just replace the localhost with the correct IP address of your OpenEMPI server. So the HTTP method would be a put, and then content type application /XML. So actually, you can also use JSON here, but for simplification presentation, I gave you an XML version of the body. Okay, so yeah, so this is creating a new patient in OpenEMPI. So next would be updating a patient in OpenAPI. So how do we update? So if you are using the GUI, of course, you have to make a search first. So OpenEMPI is very easy. So you can have a fixed entity search or a just a normal search. So if you have a fixed entity search, you will be asked to enter the exact unique, the exact identity number. So, or the identifier, depending on a certain domain. Like for example, if you want to edit an account or an entity where the SSN is 319, so you have to search for it first before you edit it. So once you are able to search for that item, you can easily select that item and then click the update entity. And then upon clicking the update entity, you will be given this screen wherein all the infos that was entered on that specific entity, you can actually edit and delete. So for edit or remove, for example, in the list of identifiers, you can add more identifiers with different domain name, or there are or some errors in adding the identifier. You can remove and then just add the next the new identifier. Also, you can edit the demographics data below. So we first created a patient, and then we can update the patient, and then searching. So for the updating a patient, so in order for us to update a patient, so in the GUI or the administrative console, you should at least have the main identifier or the identifier. So here for the API, so this is the URL. Ayan, so again, so you can just replace the local host here with the correct IP address wherein you installed your EMPI. So installing EMPI is really easy. So there are actually some ways of installing it. You can use a jar file, which is the best way or the easiest way to install the Open EMPI. And then you can also install it by the other distributions. So going back here, the HTTP method to use is pool. The content type is an XML body. So here, we can actually just insert this data, the URL, the method type, the content type in a third party like the Postman again. So we can use the Postman to test our API. So if we can actually communicate with the OpenMPI using API. So next is deleting a patient in the OpenEMPI. So here, so again, before you delete a patient, you must be able to search for it using some identifiers that you have or that you know. It can be an ECID, SSN, or any other identifier on different domain names. Here, before you delete a patient in the OpenEMPI, you will be given, you will be able to see the record of that patient, of some patient, and then you must, you will have a notification or an alert that you have to confirm the delete first. So this is very important, especially if we are deleting a record. So deleting a record may has a permanent effect. We cannot really retrieve it right away. Okay, so this is deleting a patient, and then I think that's it for the webinar. So I'm recognizing some colleagues in our webinar from GEMB. So we have Carl Fury. Hello, is Carl here? Hi.
How's it going?
Yeah. Hi, Carl. Do you want to add something with the current discussion with the client registries that we have?
I think you've given a nice overview of the different ones there, particularly those that are adhering to the IHE profiles. Well, I know OpenEMPI does. One other tool that we're busy working on is leveraging our open source Fire server called Hearth to provide the Fire-based client registry services in the future, but that's a newly developing aspect. So right now it looks like you've given a nice overview, and happy to field some questions with you from those who may be online with some questions.
Yeah, so we're actually open now for questions if our attendees have any questions. So I can answer a question, and we can also ask, we can also, a call here can also answer if you have some. And so while waiting, if our attendees have any more questions, so Carl, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So how is it going with the Fire-based client registry?
It's an exciting idea that we're working on, and we've been prototyping some of the functionality. Let's rather say proof of concepting it. With a local project in South Africa to look at how we identify patients. So it's It is something that we've been working on and hoping to get to a connectathon in 2018 to watch it work in a real-world setting. But be happy to, I think we've got Linda online too, I hope, who's here too, and she'd be able to talk a little bit how we've been using it, not just for the health side, but also looking at how Hearth is being used for civil registration.
Yeah, so maybe we could ask some information, or maybe Linda can share something about this Firebase client registry.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we've been using it in a couple of different projects, one of which we have been using it to actually store patient information. And in the other project, which is a proof of concept, we've actually been adapting the FHIR resources and storing person information for civil registration purposes.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Sorry, I can hear this last few sentences.
Okay, I'm just going to move somewhere a little bit quieter. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, in our two different projects, in the one project which is actually a production system, we've been using the FHIR server to store patient resources. So being able to do all the normal CRUD operations and storing them using the various FHIR resources, patient encounter, and so on. And
okay.
the other slightly different use case that we have, which we've just been prototyping, but it's been quite an exciting development, is that we've been using it for something called OpenCRBS and really adapting those FHIR resources, the patient resource, but using it essentially to build a person registry for civil registration type of events. So that's still very new work, but also quite exciting.
Yeah, so I think the civil registry, there are actually some facilitated online course for the CR currently ongoing, the enrollment. So some of the people, some of our attendees might be interested in joining this facilitated CRVS, which is also connected with your with our client registry, because the CRVS is actually CRVS or the civil or the CRVS is actually a good implementation of our client registry. So since we get the the vital signs, all the demographics data that we need for a person, for us to identify the specific persons that we have. So again, thank you, Linda and Carl, for sharing your insight in our webinar. So we now have some questions in our question back. So first, I want to collect all my health data from my health apps to someone from. So I'm not that familiar with the mHealth apps and wearables, but as I think these apps have a database on. They have database, and then these databases can actually interface with our with our client registry. So any client registry, and then but since we are actually implementing a certain structure, so we are not actually connecting directly to our client registry. We have our IOL, the interoperator layer, that will interface with the client registry. So the PO, for example, in this case, the mHealth application, so will not directly connect to our client registry. So the IOL will help in the directing the data from the POS into the client registry. So Next is there an online patient controlled data repository available on Android platform that I can purchase? I guess for Apple phone users, Apple Research Kit act as patient controlled data repository. Am I correct? So actually, I'm not familiar with this research kit. So Carl, Linda, are you familiar with this Apple's research kit?
I'm not, but I also not quite sure I'm catching the name. Would you be able to share the name with me in chat so I can have a look?
He says it's a Apple's research kit.
Oh, sorry, Apple Health Research Kit. Is that what it is? Or an App Health Research Kit? Either way, I haven't come across that before myself.
Yeah, me too. I'm with this research kit, so so I can't really answer the questions with this one. Yes, Mayan says it is the Apple Health Research. However, I'm sorry, Mayang, we are not really familiar with the Apple Health Research Kit. So maybe we could try to we could answer it privately. We'll try to answer your question after this webinar. Okay, so are there any other questions that we could answer? Okay, so some question here, which among the CR options mentioned would you recommend? So this is actually a bit tricky. So as you can see, I presented the 3 client registry, the MEDIC CR, which is from our colleagues from the Mohawk College. I also presented WSO2 identity server, but I use the OpenAMPI as my example. So maybe I could actually recommend OpenAMPI. So there are actually it is really easy to install. Plus they have a good documentation. The OHIE also uses the OpenAMPI for their demo for the client registry component.
And also to say on the back of that, while OpenHIE has used the OpenAMPI, there is a lot of interest and looking at other tools, as OpenHIE is an architectural model of which we're looking for different tools to be the reference implementations of it. MEDIC CR has been one that has come up, and we are looking at other ones as the standards grow too.
Yeah, so actually here we have a question for GEMB. So what is the experience of GEMB as an interoperability lab in implementing and connecting a CR with their OpenHIM IOL?
So I think that question can be broken into really 2 parts. One of them is the technical link of how have we technically linked these two together, a client registry and a master patient and an interoperability layer. And then the second, I'm going to talk about our experience of actually doing it in projects. So from a interoperability layer, GEMB uses its tool, the OpenHIM, as our de facto interoperability layer. And we tend to expose the native workflows or interoperability interfaces of the client registry that we use. In Rwanda, there wasn't much transformation between the PIX and PDQ messages to get it into OpenAMPI. We really leveraged the interoperability layer to support the auditing and tracking on it. And technically, that is creating channels with the users in the groups and pointing it to the correct endpoints and servers. In a more recent space, we've been using the interoperability layer to support some of our other projects here, where we're leveraging a similar pattern, but using the Hearth backend to expose the FHIR endpoints, and that is, again, being able to expose the channels on the interoperability layer and configuring them that they're only accessible to certain groups of users, and only those systems that have those user rights are able to engage with it. So in short, it's relatively simple to configure client registry channels on the interoperability layer, and the minimum requirements that one should know is how does your particular client registry that you're using expose its interoperability interfaces? So what are the endpoints and the connection parameters? And once you have those, you can set up your interoperability layer channel. I hope that hope that answers the question.
Yeah. And so, how was it been received in Africa and in their other implementation sites? This is another question from our attendees. Again, for you, Carl. How is it been received in Africa?
I think that's quite a difficult question to answer shortly, because each project's in a different stage of it. I think, how was it received? Principally, there's a lot of understanding of the need for uniquely identifying patients, and there's interest and effort going towards solving this problem, in whichever solution is going to work for it. And by solution, I'm meaning software packages. So there isn't one that stands head and shoulders above the rest. I think it's important that we all utilize the understanding that there are different tools that are fit for different context and purpose. So principally, yes, there's a lot of interest in figuring out how we do client registration or master patient indexes and management of patients. In South Africa particularly, there's a very large rollout of a custom tool that our local science council has built, and that has had a large amount of uptake. Here in the Western Cape, there's a lot of interest in matching and uniquely identifying patients or linking so that you can follow them through a continuous level of care. And by the way, the Western Cape is a particular province of South Africa. We have 9 different provinces. And in Rwanda, we used OpenEMPI, very early version, which we got set up by the commercial side of OpenEMPI, and that worked well in the field. And I do know that there are some questions and ideas around what the appropriate MPI would be for countries like Tanzania or Zambia, who are looking at the different tools. So the short answer is, I think there's a lot of knowledge and understanding that something like this is necessary. I think there's not a single way of doing it. It needs to be contextualized for every country.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So basically, it's a case-to-case basis depending on the needs of the country or of your specific country. Yeah, are there any other questions? So I think there are no other questions. So so before we end this webinar, so I'm actually I'm inviting you to another webinar this Wednesday, a webinar on facility registry. Our speaker would be Scott Tisdale. Same time, 8 p.m. Yeah, so if there are no more questions, I think we could end this. So thank you for attending and sharing your knowledge or expertise in this webinar. And then, so this is Pearl Gassman of SIL-Asia signing off.
Thank you, everybody.